We know the why human trafficking work is needed, to fight for the freedom of modern-day slaves. But love, passion, commitment isn't all you need to be an effective and successful anti-trafficking advocate. Learn the how. I'm Dr. Celia Williamson, Director of the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute at the University of Toledo. Welcome to the Emancipation Nation podcast, where I'll provide you with the latest and best methods, policy, and practice discussed by experienced experts in the field so that you can cut through the noise, save time, and be about the work of saving lives. Welcome to the Emancipation Nation, episode 141. I'm Dr. Celia Williamson, and today I'm talking to Walter James Lovett. He's a founder and CEO of Lovett Media Group. He developed a comic book called The Watcher. It's actually a series, The Watcher series. He started it in 2017. He is a guy that bridges news with entertainment. And so it's a natural for him to think about human trafficking in terms of bringing awareness through a comic book series that young people who are really into comics could read, enjoy, and learn a lot about human trafficking and how to fight human trafficking. Now, as you listen to Walter's story, you're going to hear that Walter has a past. He's overcome an addiction, and he's working on that every single day. So let's talk to Walter, find out about the Watcher series, and a little bit more about Walter's past and where he came from and how he lends his skill of bringing news and entertainment to a comic book series. Welcome to the show, Watcher.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Williamson.
Yeah, and I just called you Watcher instead of Walter.
Hey, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. That's a good title to have.
Okay, so tell us about the Watcher series. Like, what is that?
Thank you so much. The Watcher series is a comic book series that centers in on a Tennessee pastor who fights human trafficking by night. Mm-hmm. And it is a story that's very near and dear to my heart. I've had this story for a couple of years now, and my wife and I published the first issue in September of 2020.
Okay.
So it's been a really, really at times an arduous journey, but the story is out and it's continuing, it's growing, and we're thankful for that.
So you started out, how did you come to even talk about human trafficking in a comic book series?
Absolutely. So the human trafficking focus came to me. It actually came to me like in 2017. I had grown up, my parents were really religious growing up. My father's a pastor, and I'd been immersed in religion and in church, and I knew about God, but I didn't really consider myself to be like a really faithful believer, so to speak. And in 2017, I had just this life-altering moment. For many years, I struggled with pornography. Going back to my teen years, it was I grew up in a big city, a big town, and everything was just really like sexualized. Like the area that I grew up in was South Florida. I grew up in the late 80s, and into the 90s, early 2000s, I was like a high school kid. And so things were really sexual. There's a lot of strip clubs, massage parlors, porn shops. That area is just really known for it. And I had fallen into that group of things. I just, I didn't start out to really to seek out for it, but it kind of just fell into it because it was the culture. And so I had many years where I just really struggled with it. I knew that I didn't need to support that industry and I didn't need to give it my attention, but it was a real struggle. And in 17, I was listening to the radio, there's a hip hop artist named Andy Mineo, and he was talking about like the devastating effects of pornography and just like how the adult industry really feeds and fuels the human trafficking industry. And I was like, man, what am I doing? Like, I'm not okay with people, like modern day slavery and people being abused, especially children and people of color and people with developmental disabilities. And I felt I I was getting a real conviction from God, even though it was a radio interview. And the watcher, the skeleton of the watcher had been, I mean, I'd been writing that since like 2009, and he was going to be kind of like just a run of the mill like superhero that fights mobsters and stuff like that. And I could never really get it off the ground. I could never really just make the story click. And in that instance, I felt like God saying, this needs to be addressed. This is a medium where people are subjected to this, and you can help change the minds of so many thousands of people, that type of stuff. And I felt like God saying, like, this is your charge. Now that you know better, do better. And it so worked out. At the time I was living in Memphis, Tennessee, and that is the one of the birthing places of the civil rights movement. Dr. King was assassinated there. Of course, there's been several thousand marches and stuff, and I feel like it's just everything just fit together like a glove. And so that's how my series, came about.
Wow, that's interesting. So you're going through life, and I'm sure at some point you thought, just an average, normal, healthy male, sexual,
Yeah.
Looking at porn like people do. And then over time, did you say that you felt like you started to establish an addiction, or do you feel like there was at some point where like God convicted you and said that let's take a look at this?
I definitely would say that it developed into an addiction. I had like fought it for several years because I always went back and forth because my father's a pastor, and I knew what I'd been taught. It was always a fight because like that was the culture down in South Florida. Then I went away to school, and I in in college I was involved in athletics. I wrestled and this was really active and stuff. And it was the same thing in college. We justified it because we were like, okay, women can distract from like your training and being to the best of your ability. So, here's some girly, and the coach, he really just endorsed it. He's like, it's better for you to do this than to go out and get someone pregnant. So, you lose your scholarship and stuff like that. And so it was just perpetuated. And as I got older into the workforce and everything, I justified it because I was like, well, technically I'm not sinning or I'm not doing anything destructive. This is just something, a way to let off steam, to speak. And so it became an addiction, I say, because there were times where I would put myself in precarious situations where I would like spend bill money to maybe join a website or purchase like an autographed DVD or magazine of some sort. And you don't really think of it that way, but like it is. And so it's just, I would say it just was just really engrossed and encompassed a lot of my life. And around 2016, I knew that I couldn't really keep this up. Like I knew it was almost like it was draining. I compare it to a drug, and a lot of people do. But then a lot of people don't readily agree that pornography and sex addiction is real, but it's very real. And I just remember like it was almost like I'd be chasing a high, like I'd look for new content all the time. Not to be graphic, but like you look at, one person, one vixen, and then, okay, got her stuff, seen everything. I need something new. And it's like, it's a drug. You constantly have to re-up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so with that comes lows and highs. And some of my lows were just really, I was just really, really low, almost like a junkie.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I needed help, and I was praying. And I remember praying one day, I was like, God, can you help me do for me what I can't do for myself? And I really feel like he heard my prayer, because that was when stuff really started to change.
And what
Um,
happened?
Man, all sorts of stuff. Like I say it's divine intervention now, but I had a vehicle at the time that had just been given to me, gifted to me from a relative, and it broke down, and the um, the amount was substantial. It was like $2,500 to repair it. Right around this time, I had done some. I used to do PR work on the side in addition to like my regular job, and I had gotten this gig that paid me like right at $2,500, and I had this like illusion of grandeur. I was planning to like fly out to Las Vegas to go to this award, like they call it an award show, but it's the adult video award ceremony or something like that. It's like the Oscars of porn.
Okay.
And I was planning to fly out to that and to like meet the stars and autographs and just, make it a weekend. And the like a day or two of me praying this, the car breaks down.
Hey, I wanted to break into this episode to let you know that if you're interested in getting ahead of the problem of human trafficking by engaging in prevention and changing the trajectory of the lives of at-risk youth, then listen and learn about what really works in the field of anti-trafficking prevention curricula. Follow me here. The first issue is to understand that every youth is not at the same level of risk. There are youth at higher risk than other youth. Second, for those at higher risk, education doesn't necessarily translate into lowered risk. Youth at high risk will be educated and will remain at high risk because there are other factors keeping them at high risk. Third, understand that sex traffickers don't commonly snatch youth off the street and chain their wrists and ankles. They manipulate them and chain their minds and hearts in what we call trauma bonding. If that's true, then we need to train youth to see the manipulation coming, assess it for what it is, and do something preemptively about it. My Best Life Human Trafficking Prevention curriculum for at-risk girls uses the SAFER method to teach girls how to see risky situations and risky people, assess the situation, find suitable and safe solutions, evaluate those solutions, and respond. We talk about support and relationships and boundaries, and we reduce the risk factors that increase the opportunities for someone to remain vulnerable and to be trafficked. If you're interested in lowering risk and perhaps changing the trajectory of someone's life for the better, check out my free webinar on the Best Life curriculum at celiawilliamson.com. Learn how to become a trained Best Life facilitator today. And now, on with the podcast.
And so I felt like that was divine intervention, because I felt like God was saying, you know what, like you're asking earnestly, here's something that's going to keep you on the straight and narrow. So then when that happened, there was like some other stuff. I'd always been a really good employee at work, just hyper focused on my job. I worked in broadcasting. And around that time, I started making like really like just careless mistakes, stuff that I wouldn't, being a veteran in the industry, I wouldn't have made those mistakes. And my boss was like, man, what's going on with you? You're my best employee, that usually catches stuff. What's going on? And it was just like, I want to say like life started to unravel, but it was falling into place, because it was like now I needed God, and I was like really dependent on him. And so the stuff that was happening to me, it was fortunate, but it was keeping me away from pornography, um, away from, I hate to say this word, masturbation, and just focus on praying, doing my job and just like walking upright.
So, Walter, how did you ever seek professional treatment and receive professional treatment?
I did not. And I want to say I'm not against professional treatment at all. Like I think that it is, I'm not so spiritual that I'm unaware of like science and how, like I think if you need it, I say definitely go because it is there to help you.
Mhm.
Um, I had a relative my mom knew about what I was struggling with, and she had reached out to me and had said, I think you should try to get some treatment. And I blew it off. I was like, this is for people that are like really out there that are doing some really horrible things. And she was like, this, you really need this. And this was actually just a little bit before my spiritual journey, but she recommended it. She had a therapist that was ready to talk with me, that took my insurance and everything. And I should have considered it, but at the time I didn't do it. But I would encourage anybody to seek treatment because it's a very real addiction. It destroys marriages, it destroys families. You can really do a lot of damage.
It really does damage in the way that other addictions do. It makes you feel very shame based and
Yes.
yes. And so, how did this comic book start to help you? Start to be not only your sort of some sort of therapy in a positive way for you, but how did you come up with all these ideas in order to educate the community as well?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Celia. The comic, like I had the Watcher, like in his the bare bones, the skeleton, excuse me, was developed like years ago, around like 2009. But because I had always wanted to do my own comic book, and um, self publishing had taken off in the early 2000s, and so I was like, I can finally do it. Well, when I was like so engrossed in pornography and I was just really addicted to it, I wasn't able to advance the story because I had no motivation. Like everything, all my extra money, all my extra motivation went to um, just feeding this addiction and just keeping myself like medicated through like food and alcohol. And I I got like I think I got up to like 320 pounds at one point because I was just eating myself.
Mhm.
And so I had no focus. I didn't have the mental acuity to write the story and finish it. And when I went through this spiritual transformation, it was almost like an instant download. I remember um, the day that I listened to the interview on the radio. Like 2 nights later, I had the writing bug all of a sudden. I was like, man, I want to finish my story. Like, I want to finish my story. So I got home from work and sat down, opened up my laptop, and I started working on the story. And I remember launching the Word application and looking at the story, which at the time was only a paragraph long. And I basically started internet researching human trafficking, some of the risk factors, like how people get into it. This is a biggest city in America for people of color, and that's a risk factor. And so then I started, and I was like, oh, wow. So it's also the transportation hub of America. It's not Atlanta, but it's Memphis. So then I was like, wow. This makes sense because I was working in news. And I was like, this makes sense. This is why there's all those police bus at like the port of Memphis, and truckers are always getting caught with these girls. I was like, this makes sense. I was like, why isn't anybody really talking about it? Because in news, we say that everything is so disposable. Like in broadcast news, it's like you rush to get all the facts for a story, you compile the story to get it ready for the newscast, and then you discard it. You really don't go back to it. And so that's what was happening. Like you'd hear about this crazy bust about like a 13-year-old girl up at this hourly motel, and um and like an MPD officer being caught as like her pimp, and you'd hear about it and we would report on it. People would talk about it on social, and then you wouldn't hear anything. And I was like, well, if people heard this more, and if it resonated with people more, people would be more prone to do something about it. I was like, you're right. God, and it was like a light bulb. I'm in a position to like really enlighten people and tell people what's going on. And I said, if MLK was alive, he would be championing this. He would want this because, his fight was against injustice in all forms. And I was like, we're in the city where he did this. It's the launching pad. Let's do it. And so I just remember it was like, I say it was divine intervention because it just seemed like everything clicked, right place, right time. The subject matter is poignant. It's still poignant. And, one good thing I like about the series is that it's a call to action. It is saying that you can be a watcher. You can be a person that watches and looks out for evil, and a person that takes a stand against it. And so that's what I love about my series and it's the most unique because we can't be Superman, we can't be Batman, but we can all be Watcher.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about the series, and that's what I try to encourage.
Well, thank you so much, Walter, for just being your genuine 100% authentic self, and for reminding us that, people that are combating human trafficking come from all walks of life. We're not all perfect. We all have histories, and a lot of times we hide our histories. So thank you so much for just being 100% your full flavored, genuine self, and still telling us the wonderful things that you can bring forward to the world in the name of good. So tell us a little bit about the series. How many not episodes, but how many publications are there, and what is the general theme of the story?
Absolutely. So far we have 2 issues out. They're published kind of like magazines. I don't know if your listeners have ever picked up a comic book, but they're essentially magazines, picture books. There's words, and they range from everything as silly as like the Archie ones that you see in the grocery line, all the way up to biographies about people, influential people like Sally Ride, Malcolm X, and Abraham Lincoln. Those are some comic books that I've read. And so they're very vast in terms of like what you're looking for.
Oh, well, Walter, I am very familiar with comic books, but I'm old, so I know Archie, Veronica, and all those people. Other than that, that's
good
it.
Ones. Those are some good ones.
Yeah.
But the art form has really expanded just throughout the years. And we have 2 out, my wife and I, and we're actually getting ready to publish a 3rd one later this month, towards the end of this month, and I'm really excited about it. Series picks up with a guy, a fictional character. His name is Gideon Samuels, and his name is symbolic. Gideon means destroyer. It's a Israeli Jewish name, and then Samuel means requested. So backward, or you can essentially say it's the requested destroyer, which is he's breaking down these barriers. So in the series, the main character has kind of a spiritual journey akin to mine. He's just kind of this guy. He's in his late 20s. He's living life, women, fast cars, booze, strip clubs, porn, and he goes through this like radical change, and he starts his life over. So in the opening pages, of the first book, he is building this church in the Pinch district, which is a historically black neighborhood in Memphis. It sits on the Mississippi River, and it's the site of where the Underground Railroad took place. As they would come in off the river, and then they would be hidden in these homes and in these churches. So he's actually he's renovating, I guess, a historically black church that's dilapidated, and so it picks up there in the Pinch district, and one day he's doing his pastoral duties, so he's just cleaning in the church. And he sits down and he picks up a copy of the equivalent of the Commercial Appeal, which is the city's newspaper, and he reads about gentrification happening in the city, new stores going up, the war in Afghanistan, and he gets to the end of the paper and he's like, "Wait a second, there's nothing about these missing girls. Like they're missing girls." And I was like, he's like, "Matter of fact, one of my parishioners is missing. Her family, we've been looking for her. We've gone door to door. Nobody can find her." And so he's angry with God. The first, I want to say like 4 or 5 pages, God is on trial. He's gotten an indictment. He's like, "What are you doing? Like, how do you let this happen? This girl is missing from my congregation. Her parents don't know where she's at." He's like, "I'm angry at you. I'm angry at the system. Nobody wants to talk about missing children of color. What's going on?" And so then God's like, "Well, hey, I give you the same opportunity as I gave MLK, as I give to the next person. Like, you've got what you need. Like, why don't you just go do it? I give you the means to do this. What are you going to do about it?" He's like, "Well, I'm just a preacher in a costume." He's like, "No, you're more than that." He's like, "I'm ready. Let's do it." There are a lot of stats in the issue 1 that talk about like people of color being risk factors, impoverished people, because Memphis has some of the poorest neighborhoods in the country, right behind Detroit. And poverty is a big motivator for human trafficking because it's the exchange of money. And so that's discussed. Drugs are really big because it is a transportation hub of America. And so we talk about stats from the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. That's in there.
This is all in the first issue?
It is, yes, ma'am.
How many pages is the first issue?
It's 28 pages.
Oh, wow. And is it like, who's the age group? What's the age group that you're?
Well, I tell people, and my wife is going to get a kick out of this, so I'll tell you, but I tell people that I feel like the age group should be as young as 12. But on average, I would say my average reader, just from social media polls and from Amazon Kindle stats, my average reader is about 27.
Oh, that's interesting. And so yeah. I think that it's a clever way of showing people the issue and having them to understand that they too can get involved if they want to take up the cause and use their power for good.
Yes, ma'am.
So
absolutely.
How do people get a hold of one of the issues?
Oh, absolutely. I ship from my home. They can go to my website directly. It's www.thewatchercomicseries.com. And they can order from there. They can order it a print copy, which I'll mail to them. Or if they prefer digital format, they want to read it on their phone or their tablet or computer, they can go to Amazon.com. And from the Kindle section on Amazon, you can just type my name, Walter Lovett. My books will come up. Or you can type in the Watcher comic book series, and it'll come up, and it'll offer it to you in digital form.
Oh, that's awesome!
People can read it.
And don't tell us what happens, but how many more series? Is this series going to go on and on, or does this series end and you start a new series soon?
Absolutely. So this series will go on. Currently, I have 10 issues planned.
Okay.
10 issues written. And I'm writing more because the fight against it is ever evolving, is what I've found, especially with technology. And it's just, I hate to say this, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight against it. But I've got 10 issues planned of this, and then I have a spinoff series that is going to focus more in on like it's more teen centered, but it focuses in on the opioid epidemic, as well as just the problems or things that like teens face in terms of like cyberbullying and stuff like that. That takes place in Appalachia, West Virginia. And so that's a spinoff series coming. I hope to have that out this summer.
So you're tackling really tough topics in a way that can capture young people's attention. It seems to be young adults' attention, and educate them, and maybe even empower them to get involved. So, Walter, if there's somebody out there that's listening and they have a dream too, and maybe their past hasn't been the shiniest, do you have any advice for them?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Williamson. I would just encourage them to, I feel like there's a turning point in everybody's life where it's like you have to have kind of like a real conversation with yourself, and you have to say, do I want like what God has for me, God's perfect will, or do I want to keep doing like his permissible will, which is like, do what makes you happy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the point that I got to, like towards the end of 2016. I was like, man, I don't want to keep doing this. Like I'm like living paycheck to paycheck. Like I'm doing this stuff, but I don't have any real peace, like really real happiness. I don't really even have friends. Like I've just become like this slob, this person that I hate. And for me, it was a spiritual journey. By turning to God, I do realize that that's not for everybody. But I would just say, like, when you get to that point in your life and you're asking yourself that question, I would say, you've got to have like a real moment with yourself, and you have to say, like, what do I need to do? And so I'm going to say, turn to God. But that's just my 2 cents. But I would say if anybody is looking to get out, like, he is a resource that is unused by a lot of people, but he's a great resource. He was with Martin Luther King. He helped Martin to do some amazing things. And he'll be with you as well. And that's the advice that I'd give to anybody. And just be honest with them. Just talk to them the way that you and I are talking. Just say, hey, I've got these dreams. This is what I want to do. I have no idea how I want to do it, but I know you can help me. Steve Harvey talks about it all the time. One day he was living in his car. The next day he's a millionaire, and it just starts with that first step, just saying like, hey, I'm broken. Hey, I need help. Hey, I've got these ideas, these dreams. You put them in my heart, help me to achieve them. And I really believe that God.
Thank you so much, Walter. Thank you for your transformation, and thank you for your contributions to the world. We appreciate it. That was Walter Lovett. I want to ask you a question. How much do you judge people? Just think about that. Because Walter's been through some things. Walter hasn't been always the brightest shining star, right? In some of his activities have spilled over into addiction, full-blown addiction. And then Walter has an epiphany and uses a dream that he had for many years to create a comic book to help other people and create awareness, and to tell other people that they can step up and they can do something. Is his contribution valuable? Because I think the only difference between Walter and many of us is that Walter is being pretty transparent. He's telling you about his slings and his arrows and his struggles. And we can sit in judgment because Walter is being transparent, but he's also being accountable. Are you? Are there things in your closet that you wouldn't be transparent about? Maybe they bring shame upon you. Maybe you had an addiction yourself. Maybe there are things in your past that you know happened, but no one else knows because you're too ashamed to talk about it. Or maybe you know somebody like that. Are their contributions to the cause any less valuable because of their past? Think about that one. Will Walter overcome his addiction for the rest of his life? No one knows because addiction is one day at a time. But he has some support. Maybe not the way you would have done it. Maybe not the way someone else would have done it. But that's the way he did it. Is his contributions any less valuable? And look, we need those powerful voices of Maya Angelou and politicians and great, strong movements and all of those people. And we need the people that have a past because they bring their genuineness and their authenticity to the table as well. We need the survivors. We need the people in recovery. We need all of the people. We need every single flower in the field to make the garden. We don't have one person to spare. And if we can recruit one more into the battle, then let's do it. If you get a chance, please check out The Watcher comic book. Lots of people love comics, and this is a great way to increase awareness. Till next time, the fight continues.
Let's not just do something, let's do the best thing. If you like this episode of Emancipation Nation, please subscribe and I'll send you the weekly podcast. Until then, the fight continues.